There is an ancient book that claims to hold something the Bible never wrote down. The last words of 12 dying men. You'll know their names even if you have never thought of them together. Reuben, Simeon, Levi, Judah, and 8 more after them. They were the 12 sons of Jacob, the man God renamed Israel, and from these 12 men came the 12 tribes of a whole nation. The Bible tells us how they were born. It tells us how they wronged their brother Joseph, and how, long years later, they wept and were forgiven. It even tells us how their old father Jacob, on his deathbed, called them close and spoke a blessing over each one. But the Bible does not tell us this, what each of those 12 brothers said, years afterward, on his own deathbed, to his own gathered children. One by one, as the generations turned, each of them grew old. One by one, each felt his strength fail, and one by one, if this old book is to be believed, each of them called his sons and daughters to his bedside and told them the truth of his life, not the polished story, the real one, the secret sin that had shaped him, the thing he had done that he was not proud of, the wisdom he had paid for in sorrow and wanted to hand on before he died, so that his children might be spared what he had suffered. These are those words. The early believers treasured this book. They copied it and quoted it and read it to one another by lamplight, for it is full of confession and mercy and the quiet hope of a Redeemer yet to come. It is not Holy Scripture, and we honor the Bible above all. But these Old Testaments have comforted the faithful for nearly 2,000 years, because there is something in the honest words of a dying man that the heart never forgets. Tonight we will listen to all 12 of them. You do not need to watch. You do not need to remember a single name. Just close your eyes, let your body settle, let your breath grow slow and deep, and let these old voices, speaking gently from across the ages, carry you down into rest. 12 fathers, at the ends of their long lives, telling their children how to live. This is the testament of the 12 Patriarchs. They are, Chapter 1, Reuben, the firstborn who fell. The first to die was the first to be born. Reuben, the eldest son of Jacob, the firstborn, the one who should have inherited the birthright and the double portion and the leadership of his brothers. He had the most to gain of all of them, and the old book tells us, gently, that he lost it, not in battle, not by misfortune, but by a single secret sin. When Reuben had grown very old, a sickness came upon him, and he knew that his days were ending. So he gathered his sons and his grandsons around his bed, and he looked at them, and the old book says he began to weep. "My children," he said, "I am dying, and I am going the way of my fathers. And before I go, I must tell you the truth, the whole truth, so that you will not walk the road I walked." And then the firstborn of Israel confessed, before his own children, the sin that had cost him everything. In his youth, he said, he had been ruled by a spirit he had not known how to resist. A restlessness, a heat in the blood, a wandering of the eyes that would not be still. And it had led him once into a great and shameful wrong against his own father's house. A sin he could never undo, a sin that had quietly stripped the birthright from his hands. "I tell you this," he said, "not to shame myself before you, though I deserve the shame. I tell you so that you will understand how a single hour can undo a lifetime, and how the strongest man can be brought down by the smallest unguarded desire." And here the old book gives Reuben a teaching that the early believers underlined and remembered. He spoke to his children of the spirits of deceit, the inner pulls that lead a soul astray. "There is the spirit of the wandering eye," he said, "that makes a man hungry for what is not his. There is the spirit of insatiable wanting that is never satisfied however much it is fed. There is the spirit of strife, and the spirit of flattery, and the spirit of pride, and the spirit that whispers that no one will ever know. These come upon the young," said Reuben, "while the mind is still soft and the will is still weak. Guard yourselves. For the eye sees, and then the heart desires, and then the will is bent, and then the deed is done, and only afterward does the soul wake, as if from a dream, and see what it has lost." But the old book does not leave Reuben in his shame, for it tells us what he did after his fall. When at last he understood the weight of his sin, Reuben did not harden, and he did not excuse himself. He repented. The old book says that for 7 years he disciplined himself before God, that he drank no wine, that he ate no rich food, that he turned his face toward heaven and mourned his sin and asked for mercy. 7 long years of quiet penance, until the heat in his blood had cooled and his soul had been made low and clean again. So do not despair, he told his children at the end, if you have sinned as I sinned, for the God who made us is full of mercy toward those who turn back to him with their whole heart. He did not cast me away. He let me grow old. He let me hold my grandchildren. He let me die in peace among my children, with the truth spoken and nothing hidden. Guard your eyes, my sons. Guard your hearts, my daughters. Walk in singleness of mind toward the Lord. And when you fall, for you will fall, do not lie in the dirt and call it your home. Rise, turn back. The road of return is always open. And then the firstborn of Israel laid his head down and blessed his children and breathed his last and was gathered to his fathers. And his sons buried him and carried his words in their hearts. And there is one more thing the old book remembers about Reuben, a small redeeming thing, easy to miss. For when the brothers, in their jealousy, had seized young Joseph and meant to kill him, it was Reuben, flawed, fallen Reuben, who spoke up to save him. Let us not take his life, he said to them. Let us not shed his blood. Cast him into the pit, but do not lay your hands upon him. For the old book tells us that Reuben secretly intended to come back and lift Joseph out of the pit and restore him to their father. And when he returned and found the boy already gone, sold away, it was Reuben who tore his clothes in grief and cried, "The child is not there, and I, where shall I go?" So even in a man who had fallen, even in a heart that had known its own great sin, there was still a spark of mercy, still a flicker of the good he had been made for. And this too he wanted his children to know, that no one is so fallen that the image of God is fully lost in them, that even the sinner carries, somewhere, a coal that can still be fanned into flame. Watch over your senses, Reuben said to his children near the very end, his voice growing soft. The eye is the first gate, and the ear is the second, and the mind is the room they open into. Guard the gates, and the room stays clean. Leave the gates open to every passing thing, and one day you will find your house has been emptied while you slept, and you will not even remember when the thief came in. Pray without ceasing, he said. Love the truth. Honor your father and your mother. Cling to those who are simple and good, and keep far from those whose words are smooth and whose hearts are double. And above all, do not be ruled by the heat of your own blood, for that is what brought down the firstborn of Israel, and I would not have it bring down a single one of you. And Reuben spoke to his children about the slow, patient work of rebuilding a life after a great fall. Do not imagine, he said, that repentance is a single moment, a single night of tears, and then all is as it was. It is not. It is a road, and a long one. After I turned back, I had to learn day by day to live differently, to look away when I wanted to look, to be silent when I wanted to speak, to deny myself 100 small things so that I would never again be ruled by a large one. The chains we forge in an hour take years to file away, but they can be filed away. That is the mercy of it. Little by little, faithfulness by faithfulness, a fallen man becomes a faithful one. Not all at once, but truly, and surround yourself with the good, he urged. I could not have done it alone. Keep company with those who love the Lord, whose presence makes the right thing easier and the wrong thing harder. Flee the company that fans your worst desires into flame. A man becomes like those he walks with. So walk with the wise, and with the gentle, and with the pure, and let them carry you when your own legs are weak. And Reuben spoke a last word about the mercy of beginning again, for he did not want his children to fear the morning. Every day the Lord gives, he said, is a small return from exile, a small reopening of a gate. You will fail today in some way, large or small, and tonight you will sleep, and tomorrow the sun will rise on a man who is permitted to try again. Do not despise that gift. Do not lie awake counting the failures of the day that is ending. Lay them down, and trust that the God of mercy keeps no grudge against the truly sorry, and wake ready to walk again. The firstborn who fell tells you this: the road of return is not walked once. It is walked every single morning, by every honest soul, all the way home. So let his first word be the first one you carry down into sleep tonight. That a single sin need not be the end of a life. That the heat of youth cools, and the soul that turns back is not turned away. That mercy waited for even the fallen firstborn, and let him die in peace. Whatever you have carried into this room tonight, whatever old shame still whispers to you in the dark, Let Reuben's last word quiet it. The road of return is always open, and you do not have to walk it tonight. Tonight you have only to rest. Chapter 2. Simeon, the brother eaten by envy. The second to die was Simeon, the second son of Jacob, a man strong of body and fierce of will. And the sin he confessed upon his deathbed was a quiet inward thing, a thing that left no mark on the skin, but had eaten at him for years from the inside. It was envy. When Simeon was dying, he called his children to him, and he told them plainly the thing that had ruled his youth. I was an honest man, he said, and strong, and afraid of nothing under heaven. But there was one thing I could not master, and it nearly destroyed me. I could not bear to see my brother lifted up above me. For of all the brothers, the old book tells us, it was Simeon who burned hottest against Joseph. Joseph, the favored one, the dreamer, the boy in the beautiful coat whom their father loved best. When I looked at him, Simeon confessed, a fire went through me. The prince of deceit took hold of my heart and blinded my mind, so that I no longer saw my brother as a brother but as a rival to be brought down. I wished him gone. I who shared his blood wished him gone. And the old book tells us a strange and sobering thing, that the envy in Simeon's heart did not only harm Joseph, it harmed Simeon himself, in his own body. He said that while the envy ruled him, he could not eat well, nor sleep well, nor rest, that his strength was troubled and his peace was gone, that the very hand which had plotted against his brother withered for a time, as if his body knew the wrong before his mind would admit it. Envy, he told his children, is a master that pays no wages but ruin. It does not wound the one you envy, it wounds you. It dries up the bones, it steals the sweetness from every good thing you have, because your eyes are always on the good thing someone else has. And Simeon taught his children how to fight the thing that had so nearly destroyed him, for he had learned the cure at great cost. The remedy for envy, he said, is not to look away from your brother's good, but to learn to rejoice in it. When you see another lifted up, bless him in your heart, and keep blessing him until the blessing becomes true. For envy cannot live in a heart that is busy rejoicing. The two cannot share a room. Train your soul to be glad at another's gladness, and you will have starved the serpent before it can grow. And keep your heart simple, he urged. Envy is born in the man who is always comparing, always measuring, always asking why another has what he lacks. But the simple-hearted man does not measure. He receives his own portion from the hand of God with thanks, and he does not stand at his neighbor's window counting what is inside. The Lord gives to each what each needs. Who are we to grudge the gifts of God to another? He told them that he had wasted years this way, years he could never recover, and that the wasting had taught him to treasure what little time remained. Do not give the years of your one life to envy, he said. It is the most expensive sin, and it buys you nothing at all. But Simeon too found his way back, for when the brothers came at last into Egypt and stood before the great ruler they did not recognize, and learned that the brother they had wronged was alive, when Joseph wept and forgave them and held them, something broke open in Simeon. The old book says he was ashamed, and then he was sorry, and then, slowly, he was healed. He set himself against the spirit of envy for the rest of his days. He learned to rejoice in the good that came to others. So guard yourselves, my children, he said at the end, from the spirit of envy. Do not measure your life against your brothers. Keep your heart in simplicity and goodness. Love one another from a true heart. For where there is envy, the enemy walks freely. But where brothers love each other and rejoice in one another's good, there the enemy can find no door. And he spoke a quiet word of hope before he died, that from his brothers Levi and Judah would one day arise the salvation of God, a deliverer for all the people. And then Simeon blessed his children and died and was buried and was at peace. When was at peace? Chapter 3. Levi, the son who saw the heavens open. The Third Testament is one the early believers loved most of all, for it is full of wonder. It is the testament of Levi, the son from whom the priests of Israel would descend, and Levi, before he died, told his children of a vision he had been given in his youth, when the heavens themselves were opened to him. He was a young man, he said, keeping the flocks and grieving over the wrongs of men, and praying that God would save his family from the corruption he saw all around him. And as he prayed, a deep sleep fell upon him, and in the sleep, the old book says, he saw a high mountain, and the heavens opened above it, and an angel of God called to him and said, Levi, Levi, come up, and Levi went up. And the angel led him through the heavens one by one and showed him their order and their meaning. He saw, the old book tells us, that the heavens are layered, each above the other, each holding its own purpose. He was shown the lower heavens, where the powers are kept that will be used in the day of judgment. He was shown the higher heavens, full of light, growing brighter and more glorious the higher he was carried. And at the highest of all, the old book says, Levi beheld the great glory, the holy presence of the Most High himself, dwelling in light unapproachable, surrounded by the worshipping hosts of heaven, who offer up to God a continual fragrance of praise on behalf of all the righteous of the earth. And there, in that high and holy place, the angel told Levi a thing that changed his life. He was told that he and his children after him would be set apart for God, that they would stand between heaven and earth as priests, offering prayer and sacrifice, carrying the needs of the people up to God and the blessing of God down to the people. You will draw near to the Lord, the angel said, and you will be his minister, and you will declare his mysteries to men. And Levi awoke from the vision trembling, and from that day he carried within him the memory of the open heavens and the knowledge of what his life was for. But Levi was an honest dying man, and he did not hide the harder part of what he had been shown, for he told his children that the angel had also shown him the future, that in the generations to come, the priesthood would not always be faithful, that some of his descendants would grow proud and greedy and would defile the holy things, and would turn the gift of the altar into a means of gain. He warned them with tears not to be among them. Keep yourselves pure, he said. The priesthood is a great light, but a light can be used to lead men home, or it can be used to lead them astray. Do not trade the holy things for silver. Do not let the robe of the priest cover a hungry and grasping heart. And then Levi lifted his children's eyes to the great hope at the center of his vision, for he told them that the day would come when God would raise up a new priest, a priest unlike any before him, upon whom the heavens would open as they had opened over the mountain, who would take away the sin of the world and bind the enemy and open the gates of paradise. In his priesthood, Levi said, the nations will be filled with knowledge, and the light of the Lord will shine, and sin will come to an end, and the righteous will rest in him. So Levi died in hope, the priest who had seen the heavens open, waiting for the greater priest who was to come. And the old book gives us one more gift from Levi before he died. He told his children that in the vision, the angel had not only shown him the heavens, but had clothed him, that in that high place, holy ones came to him and dressed him in the garments of the priesthood, a robe, and a crown, and the breastplate of understanding, and the diadem of faith, and oil of anointing poured upon his head, so that he came down from the mountain no longer merely a herdsman, but a man set apart for God. When you serve at the altar, he told his sons, remember that the true robe is not woven of thread. The true robe is a clean heart. The true crown is humility. The true anointing is the Spirit of God resting upon a willing soul. A man may wear every garment of the priesthood and still stand far from God if his heart is not clothed. And a man with no robe at all may stand very near to God if his heart is pure. And Levi taught them to love wisdom. Teach your children letters, he said, so that they may have understanding all their lives, reading without ceasing the law of God. For whoever knows the law of the Lord will be honored wherever he goes, and will not be a stranger in any land, but will have more friends than his parents, and many will desire to serve him and to hear the law from his mouth. Do good, my children, upon the earth, that you may find favor in the heavens. These were the words of a man who had stood in the light and come back to live in the world, and who wanted, more than anything, for his children to carry a little of that light in how they lived. Let his vision be your last waking thought for now. That above this small dark room, above the roof, above the clouds, above the night sky, the heavens rise layer upon layer toward a light that does not fail, and that at the very top of all things dwells a glory that knows your name, surrounded by those who carry your prayers upward like a sweet fragrance. You do not have to climb to reach it. You have only to rest and trust and let your prayers rise on their own, the way they always have. Sleep now. Heaven is not as far as it feels. Chapter 4. Judah, the lion brought low and lifted up. The Fourth Testament belongs to Judah, the son from whom the kings of Israel would come, and in time the King of Kings himself. And of all the 12, Judah may be the one whose dying words cut the deepest, for he was the strongest of the brothers, and the bravest, and the most blessed. And he confessed before his children that his very strength had nearly been his ruin. When Judah was old and near to death, he gathered his sons, and he began not with his sins, but with the glory of his youth, for he wanted them to understand how far a strong man can fall. My children, he said, when I was young, I feared nothing that walked or breathed. The Lord gave me strength and grace and swiftness, so that I could outrun the wild deer and overtake the gazelle and wrestle the beasts of the field. And the old book lets Judah tell his war stories, the way an old soldier tells them by the fire. He told of facing a lion and seizing it and tearing it before it could harm the flock. He told of running down a wild boar and catching a bear by its paw and rolling it down a hill. He told of the wars of his youth, of kings who came against his father's house, of cities besieged and enemies scattered, of a day when he and his brothers stood against armies and the Lord gave them the victory. There was no man who could shame me in battle, Judah said. The Lord was with my arm, and I was lifted up above my brothers, and the kingship was promised to my line forever. But then his voice changed, and the old book tells us that the lion of the brothers lowered his great head and confessed the two enemies that had done to him what no beast and no army ever could. Hear me, my children, he said, and hear me well, for this is the wisdom I bought with my own shame. 2 things cast down the strong. 2 things have ruined more mighty men than all the swords of all the nations. They are wine and the beauty of women, and I, who feared no lion, was overcome by both. He told them plainly how it had happened, how in his strength and his success he had grown careless, how he had taken too much wine, and how the wine had loosened his judgment and clouded his eyes and lowered the gate of his heart that should have stayed shut. Wine is a small thing, he said, until it is a great thing. It promises to make the heart merry, and so it does, but it also makes the wise man foolish, and the strong man weak, and the careful man reckless. When wine rules a man, he speaks secrets he meant to keep, and does deeds he would never do sober, and wakes in the morning to a ruin he cannot remember building. I tell you, my sons, watch the wine, let it serve you, never let it rule you. For the day you cannot sit at the table without it is the day it has become your master. And then, with even greater sorrow, he confessed how desire had led him astray, how he had been deceived in his choices, how he had been drawn by beauty and by gold into bonds that grieved him, how the spirit of fornication and the love of money had worked together upon him, each making the other stronger. These 2 walk together, Judah warned. The love of pleasure and the love of money are 2 horses pulling the same cart, and the cart is driven by deceit, and the road it travels ends in sorrow. The love of money blinds a man to God. It makes him call evil good if it profits him. It leads him to harm his own family for the sake of gain. And the love of pleasure makes a man a fool before those he should rule, and a slave to those who flatter him. The old book does not spare Judah, and Judah does not spare himself. He named his failures so that his children would not repeat them. But, and here the testament turns, the way they always turn, he did not end in despair. For Judah had repented, deeply and truly, and God had not taken the promise from him. Understand the mercy of God, Judah told his children, his old eyes shining. I sinned, and yet the Lord did not cast away the blessing he had spoken over me. He chastened me and humbled me and taught me, but he did not abandon me. For the gifts and the calling of God are not so easily undone as we fear. When we fall, he does not erase us. He bends down and lifts us and sets us walking again, if only we will turn to him with a whole heart. And then Judah lifted his children's eyes to the horizon and spoke the prophecy that the early believers cherished above almost any other line in the whole book. For he told them that from his line, the line of Judah, a king would arise, but not only a king like the kings of the earth. A star shall rise from Jacob, he said, and a man shall arise from my seed, like the Son of Righteousness, walking with the children of men in meekness and in justice. The heavens will open over him, and the Spirit of God will rest upon him, and he will pour out the Spirit of grace upon you, and you will be to him sons in truth. And in his days sin will come to an end, and the lawless will cease from evil, and the righteous will rest in him. He will open the gates of paradise. He will take away the sword that has threatened since Adam, and he will give to his holy ones to eat from the tree of life. Do you hear it? A dying soldier, an old king's father, looking down the long centuries from his deathbed, and seeing a star, seeing the very hope that the whole world would one day be given. Judah had been strong, and had fallen, and had been lifted. And out of his lifted and forgiven life would come the one who lifts the whole world. So do not fear your weakness, my children. Judah said at the last, Fear only your pride. The strong man who knows he can fall walks carefully and is kept. It is the strong man who believes he cannot fall who is already falling. Keep the commandments of the Lord. Honor Levi and his priesthood, and honor the kingship, but love the Lord above them both. Flee the love of money. Watch the wine, guard your eyes, and wait for the star. And then the lion of the brothers laid down his head, and blessed his sons, and died, and was gathered to his fathers in peace. And Judah told them one more thing about wine, for he had thought long about it in his old age. There is a secret in wine that few discover until it is too late, he said. It does not change a man into someone else. It uncovers the man who was always there. Whatever a man hides while he is sober, his anger, his lust, his pride, his bitterness, the wine does not create it. It only unlocks the door and lets it walk out into the open. So a man who drinks to drown his troubles only sets them free to do their worst. If you would know what truly lives in your heart, watch what comes out of you when the wine has loosened the guard. And if what comes out shames you, do not blame the wine, mend the heart. And Judah spoke to them too of the burden of leadership, for he was the father of kings. To rule is a heavy thing, he said, and the higher a man is lifted, the harder he falls, and the more he takes down with him. A common man who sins ruins himself. A ruler who sins ruins a nation. So if the Lord lifts any of you to lead, over a house, over a tribe, over a people, lead in the fear of God, and never imagine that your high place puts you above his law. The king is under the King of Kings. The crown does not excuse the sin, it multiplies it. Rule yourself first, my children, before you presume to rule any other. For the man who cannot govern his own appetites will become, soon enough, the slave of those he was set to lead. And Judah the warrior told his children the strangest lesson of his fighting years, that his hardest battles had not been against any enemy he could see. I conquered kings, he said, and I could not conquer myself. I broke armies, and a single cup of wine broke me. I stood unafraid before the lion and the bear, and I trembled and fell before my own desire. Do you understand what I am telling you? The fiercest war a man will ever fight is the one inside his own chest, and most of the mighty never even know they are losing it, because the enemy wears their own face and speaks with their own voice. Be more watchful of yourself than of any foe. The walls that fall are not the cities, they are the hearts. And keep good and faithful friends near you in the fight, Judah said, men who will tell you the truth when you do not want to hear it. A flatterer is more dangerous to a great man than an army, for the army strengthens your guard, and the flatterer lowers it. The friend who warns you loves you. The friend who only praises you is preparing your fall. Honor the one who dares to say, my Lord, you are wrong. He may save your life. And Judah left his children one last picture, drawn from his own long life, of how a man should hold both his triumphs and his failures. Do not be lifted up by your victories, he said, nor cast down forever by your defeats. I have had both in greater measure than most, and I have learned that they are two teachers in the same school. Victory, if you let it, will make you proud, and pride will open the gate to your ruin. Defeat, if you let it, will make you humble, and humility will keep the gate shut. So the very thing the world calls failure may guard you, and the very thing the world calls success may destroy you. Weigh them then not by how they feel, but by what they make of you. The day I fell was a bitter day, but it was the day I began, at last, to lean on God instead of on my own strong arm. And leaning on God, I found, is the only standing that never fails. Pass this to your children, Judah said, and to theirs. The line of kings will rise and fall, and thrones will be won and lost. But the man who has learned to be humble in his strength and hopeful in his weakness has found a kingdom that no enemy can take from him, the quiet kingship of a soul at peace with God. Rest now in Judah's last and gentlest truth, that your weakness is not the thing that will undo you if you bring it humbly to God, that the strong are kept not by their strength but by their humility, and that a star was promised long ago and has long since risen and shines even now over this dark and quiet room. You do not have to be strong tonight. You have only to be still and to let the one who is strong keep watch while you sleep. Chapter 5. Issachar, the good man who wanted nothing. The Fifth Testament is the quietest of them all, and perhaps the most beautiful. It belongs to Issachar, a son who fought no great battles and saw no opened heavens, but who lived a long, plain, honest life, and who on his deathbed could say something that very few people in all the world have ever been able to say. He could say that he had walked in singleness of heart and had wronged no one all the days of his life. Issachar was a man of the soil. He loved the ground and the working of it and the slow turning of the seasons. He rose early, he labored honestly. He took what the earth gave for his labor, and he was content. And when his time came to die, he gathered his children, and he did not weep over great sins, for the Lord had kept him. Instead, he told them the secret of a life lived well. "My children," he said, "I have lived to a great age, and I have never had to be ashamed before any man. I did not take another's field. I did not move my neighbor's landmark in the night. I did not slander anyone, nor speak against my brother, nor envy what another had. I walked in the uprightness of my heart." And then he gave them the word that the early believers underlined: singleness of heart. Walk in singleness of heart, my children. Do not look at a man with one face and speak to him with another. Do not say good with your mouth while you plan harm in your thoughts. The single-hearted man does not pry into the deeds of others. He does not lie awake calculating his neighbor's wealth. He does not let his eye grow sick with envy or his tongue grow sharp with gossip. He keeps his own work and his own heart and his own house, and in keeping them simply he is kept. He told them how this simplicity had guarded him. "Because I did not covet," he said, "I was never tormented by what I did not have. Because I did not deceive, I never had to remember which lie I had told to whom. Because I loved the Lord and loved my neighbor, I had no enemies in my own heart, and so I slept soundly every night of my life, with nothing gnawing at me in the dark." And is that not a kind of wealth that the richest and most cunning man often never tastes? The old book wants us to see it, that the simple, sincere, generous man is not the fool the world takes him for. He is the free man. He alone is not enslaved to the endless wanting that drives the clever and the greedy from one sleepless night to the next. Issachar gave generously too. He brought the first and best of his harvest to the priest, and then to the poor and to the stranger, before he took for himself. And the old book says the Lord blessed his fields and doubled the work of his hands, so that the more he gave, the more the ground gave back to him. "Give to the poor and the sick," he told his children. "Do not turn your face from any man in need. God will give to you as you give to others, and your barns will not be emptied by your generosity but filled by it. For there is a strange arithmetic in the kingdom of God, where the open hand is never the empty hand. Love the Lord and your neighbor," Issachar said at the very end, drawing his children close. "Have compassion on the poor and the weak. Bow your back to the work of the earth, and your heart to the will of heaven, and you will live as I have lived, and you will die as I am dying, without fear and without shame and at peace." And then Issachar, the good man who had wanted nothing, blessed his children and breathed his last, and was buried in the land he had loved and tended. And Issachar warned his children, gently, against one danger that simple men often miss. "Do not let your simplicity become an excuse for laziness," he said, "nor your contentment become a reason to neglect your work. I was content, but I was never idle. I rose early, I bent my back, I gave the ground its due, and it gave me mine." The simple life is not the easy life, it is the honest one. It asks for your sweat, but it spares you your shame. Work hard, want little, give much, and trust God for the rest. That is the whole of it, and it is harder and better than all the schemes of the cunning. "And keep your conscience clean above every other treasure," he urged. "I have lain down every night of my life with nothing on my conscience, and I tell you, my children, there is no softer pillow in all the world. The rich man tosses on his fine bed, kept awake by the wrongs he has done and the wrongs he fears. But the man whose hands are clean and whose heart is single sleeps like a child, though his bed be straw. Guard that clean conscience as the one possession that cannot be bought and cannot be stolen, and follows you even into the grave. Carry his quiet word into your rest. You do not need more than you have to be at peace tonight. The grasping, sleepless wanting that the world calls ambition is not your master. Let it go. Be for this one night as simple and as content as Issachar in his field at evening. Work done, hands washed, conscience clear, heart single, and sleep the deep and untroubled sleep of the honest. Chapter 6. Zebulun, the first heart to show mercy. The Sixth Testament belongs to Zebulun, and its single shining theme is mercy. For Zebulun told his children that of all the things he had done in his long life, the one he most wished to pass on to them was compassion. the simple, world-changing habit of having mercy on every person you meet. Zebulun was, the old book tells us, a man of the water. He was the first among the brothers to build a boat and to sail upon the sea and to draw fish from the deep. And when he brought in his catch, he did not hoard it. Whatever I caught, he said, I shared. I gave to the stranger and to the sick and to the old and to anyone who was hungry. If a man was cold, I divided my clothing with him. If a man was alone, I brought him to my fire. I could not eat in comfort while another went without. The thought would take the taste from the food in my mouth. And then Zebulun confessed the sorrow that had taught him mercy. For he had been there a young man on the terrible day his brothers seized Joseph and sold him away. And though he had been too young and too afraid to stop them, the old book says that Zebulun wept. While the others ate, he told his children, I could not eat. I went away and I wept because I had seen our brother lifted out of the pit and led away in chains, and I could not bear it. I took no silver from his sale, not one piece. The thought of profiting from my brother's grief sickened my soul, and he wanted his children to learn from his sorrow what the others had learned too slowly, that there is nothing, no profit, no advantage, no revenge worth the hardening of the heart. My children, Zebulun said, have mercy in your inward parts. Have compassion on every man, not only your own people, not only those who can repay you. For as a man shows mercy to his neighbor, so the Lord shows mercy to him. The merciful find mercy, the hard of heart find hardness. The measure you pour out for others is the measure that will, in the end, be poured out for you. He told them that compassion is not weakness, as the proud believe, but the very strength of God working through a human heart. When you show mercy, he said, you are most like the one who made you, for he is merciful and slow to anger and full of compassion, and he sends his rain on the just and the unjust alike. Be like your father, let no one come to you in need and go away empty. And then Zebulun too lifted his children's eyes to the hope of the one to come, promising that in the latter days the Lord himself would visit his people in compassion, healing every sickness, gathering the scattered, shining like a light upon all who sat in darkness. He will come in mercy, Zebulun said, for mercy is his nature, and those who have shown mercy will run to meet him with joy, for they will recognize his face, they will have seen it, in a dim and lovely way, every time they showed kindness to the least of these. So Zebulun blessed his children, and charged them once more to love one another, and to hide no grudge in their hearts. And then he died, and was carried in a fine coffin to the burial place of his fathers, mourned by all who had ever received his kindness, and there were very many of them. And Zebulun told his children a small secret about compassion that he had learnt upon the water. Mercy grows by being spent, he said. When I was young, I feared that if I gave away my catch, I would have less, but I found the opposite was true. The more I gave, the more my heart enlarged, until I could not pass a hungry man without stopping. Compassion is a muscle, my children. Use it, and it strengthens. Neglect it, and it withers, until at last a man can step over a dying stranger and feel nothing at all. Guard against that hardening above all things. The day you can look on suffering and feel nothing is the day you have lost something far more precious than money. And do not wait to feel compassion before you act on it, he added. Sometimes the feeling comes first, and sometimes the deed must come first and the feeling follows. Do the kind thing, even on the days your heart is cold, and you will find your heart warming to meet your hands. Mercy is learned by being practiced, the same as any good thing. Let mercy be the last thing in your mind as you drift downward now. The mercy you have shown, and the mercy you have received, and the great mercy that holds the whole world together and holds you, now, in the dark. Whatever was hard in your day, let it soften. Whatever grudge you carried in, set it down by the door. You will not need it where you are going tonight. Sleep, and be at peace, and wake gentler than you lay down. Chapter 7. Dan, the two fires of anger and the lie. The seventh testament belongs to Dan, and it is a warning spoken from the far side of a sin a man had barely survived. For Dan confessed to his children that in his youth he had been ruled by two spirits that fed each other, the spirit of anger and the spirit of falsehood, and that together they had nearly made him a murderer. When Dan was old and dying, he called his sons, and he did not soften it. Hear me, my children, he said, for I will tell you a hard truth about myself, so that you may be spared. In the days of my youth I was angry, and in my anger I was glad at my brother Joseph's affliction. I tell you it openly, There was a time when I would have rejoiced to see him dead, for the prince of anger had blinded my heart and made me forget that he was my own blood. And Dan told them how the anger had not come alone. Where anger goes, lying follows close behind, he said. For when I was angry, I would believe any evil report against the one I was angry at, and I would repeat it and add to it, and the lie made the anger hotter, and the hotter anger made me ready to believe a worse lie still. The two of them turned in me like two stones grinding, and what they ground to powder was my own peace. And then Dan taught his children the nature of the thing that had nearly destroyed him, with the clarity of a man who has studied his own wound. Anger is a strange madness, he said. It is brief, but in its brief hour it can undo a whole life. It troubles the soul so that a man cannot see the truth even when it stands before him. When you are angry, you are sure you are right, and that certainty is the very proof that you have lost your sight. The angry man and the drunk man are brothers. Both are confident, and both are blind, and both wake to regret what they cannot take back. So when the fire rises in you, my children, do not act, do not speak. Wait, be silent, let the hour pass. For anger always lies about how long it will last, and how good its revenge will feel, and how impossible it is to let go. And love the truth, Dan urged, for truth is the only ground that anger cannot burn. A man who clings to the truth, who refuses to repeat what he has not weighed, who will not let a grudge color what he believes, that man has taken away the very fuel the fire needs. Speak truth, each one to his neighbor. Hide no anger in your heart against your brother. If he has wronged you, tell him, and forgive him, and be done. For the grudge you nurse in secret will harm you far more than the wrong that began it. But Dan too found his way home, for he had repented and had spent his later years guarding the very gate he had once left open. And before he died, he lifted his children's eyes to the great hope. He warned them that in the last days the enemy, the spirit of falsehood himself, would gather his power and trouble the earth. But he promised that the salvation of the Lord would arise from the tribe of Judah and the tribe of Levi, and that God would come down and dwell among men and make war on the enemy, and bind him and give peace to the saints, and turn the hearts of the disobedient back to the Lord. And those who have died in sorrow, Dan said, will rise in joy, and those who are poor for the Lord's sake will be made rich, and the holy ones will rest in Eden, and the righteous will rejoice in the New Jerusalem, which will be the glory of God forever. So Dan blessed his children, charging them to keep far from anger and to cling to the truth. And then he died and was laid with his fathers. And Dan gave his children a practical mercy, a way to disarm anger before it could arm itself. When you feel the heat begin to rise, he said, do 3 things, and do them before you do anything else. First, be silent, speak not one word, for the words spoken in anger are the ones that can never be unspoken. Second, breathe and wait. Give the fire its hour to burn down, for no anger lasts as long as it swears it will. And third, pray for the one who angered you. Yes, pray for him by name, for it is nearly impossible to keep hating a man while you are asking God to bless him. These 3 together have put out more fires than all the wisdom of the wise. They cost nothing, and they have saved households and friendships and lives. And forgive quickly, Dan added, before the wound has time to fester. A small cut, cleaned at once, heals and is forgotten. The same cut, left to rot, can poison the whole body. So it is with the wrongs done to us. Forgive them while they are small, and they pass. Nurse them, and they grow into the great hatreds that ruin men. Be a quick forgiver, my children. It is the surest way to a long peace. Let his warning cool you now like water on a burn. Whatever anger you carried into this day, at someone who wronged you, at the world, at yourself, let it go out like a fire with no more fuel. You do not have to win the argument you are still having in your head. You do not have to be right tonight. You have only to be at peace. Let the truth be enough. Let the silence be enough. And sleep. As chapter 8. Naphtali, the man who lived in good order. The 8th Testament belongs to Naphtali, and it is gentle and strange and full of wonder, for Naphtali was a dreamer of dreams, and he taught his children to live in harmony with the deep order God has woven into all things. Naphtali was, the old book tells us, swift and good-natured, a man at home in the created world, who loved to watch the wheeling of the stars and the running of the deer and the turning of the seasons, and who saw in all of it the careful hand of a God who does nothing by accident. My children, he said as he lay dying, consider the works of the Lord, the The sun, the moon, and the stars do not change their order. They rise in their seasons and set in their seasons. They do not crowd one another or abandon their courses. The sea keeps its bounds. The rivers run to their appointed places. All of creation keeps the order it was given, and in keeping it, all of creation is at peace. So it must be with you, Naphtali taught. God made you in measure and in order, every part of you for a purpose. The eye to see, the ear to hear, the hand to work, the heart to love, the mind to know him. Do not pervert the order of your nature. Do not use what was made for good to do evil. A thing is beautiful when it does what it was made for, and ugly when it is twisted to do otherwise. Keep your life in good order. Do the right thing in its right season. There is a time to work and a time to rest, a time to speak and a time to be silent, a time to give and a time to keep. And wisdom is simply knowing which time you are in and acting accordingly. And then Naphtali told his children of his dreams, for he had been given two, and he had never forgotten them. In the first, he stood upon the Mount of Olives with his brothers, and behold, the sun and the moon were standing still in the sky, and a great struggle came among the brothers to lay hold of them, and only those who honored Levi and Judah were lifted up toward the light. In the second, he saw a ship sailing upon the sea without sailors and without a captain. And upon it was written, the ship of Jacob. And a great storm arose, and the ship was tossed. And Jacob their father was nowhere to be found, and the brothers were scattered to the ends of the earth upon the broken pieces. And Naphtali wept as he told it, for he understood that the dream had foreseen the scattering of his people, the long exile, the breaking apart, the centuries of wandering. But hear the comfort in it, he said, for though the ship was broken and the brothers scattered, the sea did not swallow them. They were carried each upon his piece to distant shores, and a day is coming when the one who calmed the storm will gather every scattered plank and every lost brother, and make of them a whole ship once more, and bring them home. So live rightly, my children, Naphtali said at the last, each in his season, in singleness of heart, honoring Levi and Judah, doing good in good order, and whatever storm scatters you, however far you are carried, do not despair. The God of order has not lost your place in the pattern. He knows where every plank has drifted. He will gather you in the end. And Naphtali blessed his children, and lay back, and died in peace, and slept with his fathers. And Naphtali taught his children to read the two books God has given. The Lord has written his will in two places, he said, in the law and in the world. Read them both, and let them agree in you. For the same God who said in the law, do not steal, do not lie, love your neighbor, also wrote those same commands into the very order of creation. For the stars do not steal one another's places, and the seasons do not lie about when they will come, and the earth gives its fruit to all alike. Live then according to both books. Do not be a man who keeps the law with his lips while living against the grain of the whole created order with his life. And do not strive against the times, Naphtali urged. There is a season for everything under heaven, and much of wisdom is simply patience with the seasons. The farmer does not rage at the winter, nor tear the fruit from the tree before it is ripe. He waits and works in the working season, and rests in the resting season, and trusts the God of harvests. Be like him. Do not demand the fruit of a season you are not yet in. Trust the one who set the seasons turning. Let his good order settle over your own night now. You do not have to fix the whole pattern of your life tonight. You have only to keep this one small order. It is the time to rest, not the time to work, not the time to worry, not the time to plan, the time to rest. So do the right thing for this hour, as Naphtali taught. And the right thing for this hour is simply to close your eyes and breathe and let the God who keeps the stars in their courses keep you through the night. Chapter 9. Gad, the man who learned to stop hating. The 9th Testament belongs to Gad, and it is perhaps the most piercing confession of them all, for Gad spoke about a sin that hides itself better than any other, a sin that always believes it is justified. He spoke about hatred. When Gad was dying, he gathered his children, and he told them the truth that had cost him years of his peace. My children, I hated my brother Joseph. I will not pretend otherwise at the end of my life. I hated him, and I was glad to be rid of him, and for a long time I felt no shame in it, for hatred is a clever liar, and it whispered to me day and night that I was right to hate. He told them how it had begun, small, the way it always begins, a word, a slight, a report Joseph had carried to their father, a spark of resentment that, left alone, did not go out, but smoldered, and spread, and slowly took over the whole field of his heart. And then Gad taught his children the nature of hatred, with the terrible insight of a man who has lived inside it and come out the other side. Hear how hatred works, he said, so that you will know it when it comes for you. Hatred does not want the truth about the one it hates. It wants only reasons to keep hating. When the hated one does something good, hatred says, he only did it for show. When the hated one fails, hatred is secretly glad. When others praise him, hatred grows angry. When others blame him, hatred rejoices. Hatred shuts its ears to every good report and opens them wide to every evil one. It cannot bear to hear the hated man defended, and it will believe any lie against him, however thin, because the lie feeds the fire, and the fire is what hatred lives for. And here is the cruelest part, Gad went on, his voice low. Hatred does not punish the one you hate, it punishes you. While I hated Joseph, Joseph slept soundly in Egypt, unaware. It was I who lay awake. It was my own peace that was eaten, my own joy that was poisoned, my own body that grew sick. For the old hatred dries up the strength and troubles the sleep, and turns even good days bitter. The man you hate goes free. You are the one in the prison, and you hold the key the whole time, and will not use it, because hatred has told you that to forgive would be to lose. But Gad did use the key in the end. When Joseph forgave them all in Egypt, when the brother he had wronged wept over him and held him and repaid his hatred with nothing but love, something in Gad finally broke and finally healed. Love drove out my hatred, he said. I saw a man repay evil with good, and it shamed my hatred into nothing, and I learned the only cure there is, love. So I tell you, my children, love one another from the heart. For love covers a multitude of sins, and hatred invents a multitude that were never there. Where love asks, how can I understand him? Hatred asks, how can I bring him down? Choose love, even when hatred feels more like justice, especially then. And if a man wrongs you, Gad urged them, do not nurse it in silence until it becomes hatred. Go to him. Tell him gently. Give him the chance to repent, and forgive him the moment he does. And even if he does not, leave the matter with God and let go of it, for your own soul's sake. Do not let the sun go down on a grudge. Do not let a single offense, however real, become a fire that burns down the whole house of your heart. And Gad blessed his children and laid down the last of his old hatred forever, and died in the peace he had so long been denied, and was buried with his fathers. And Gad gave his children a test, a simple way to know whether hatred had crept into their hearts unnoticed. Ask yourself this, he said. When you hear good news about him, are you glad, or does something in you sink? When you hear bad news about him, are you sorry, or does something in you quietly smile? Your answer will tell you the truth about your heart, no matter what fine words you use to cover it. Hatred always betrays itself in those small secret reactions, the ones no one else can see. Watch them. They are the smoke that reveals the fire. And know this, Gad warned. Hatred will always dress itself as justice. It will tell you that you are right to feel as you feel, that the other deserves it, that your bitterness is only fairness. Do not trust it. Even when the wrong done to you is real, even when your anger is justified, the hatred that grows out of it is not. You may have every right to be angry, and still no right to let that anger curdle into the wish that another human soul would suffer. Hand the wrong to God, who judges justly, and keep your own heart free of the poison. For the judge of all the earth will do right. You need not appoint yourself to do it for him. Let his hard-won freedom be yours tonight. If there is someone you have been holding in the prison of an unforgiven hurt, someone whose name still tightens your chest in the dark, hear Gad's last word. You hold the key. You always have. You do not have to turn it tonight, but you can set the whole heavy ring of it down by the bed and sleep without it and see how much lighter the morning feels. Chapter 10. Asher, the Two Faces and the Single Heart. The 10th Testament belongs to Asher, and it gives us one clear and searching idea, an idea the early believers turned over again and again, that there are, in the end, only two kinds of people, the single-faced and the two-faced. My children, Asher said as his life drew to its close, God has set before every man two ways, good and evil, and two dispositions to walk them with, and two ends they lead to. There is the single heart, that looks one way, toward the good, and the two faces, that look toward good and evil at once, and on which of these you choose to be hangs the whole meaning of your life. And Asher described the two-faced man so exactly that his children must have shivered to hear it, for we have all met him, and we have all in our worst hours been him. The two-faced man, Asher said, does good but for an evil purpose. He gives to the poor so that men will praise him. He speaks kindly to a man's face and plots against him behind his back. He hides his greed under the robe of generosity and his cruelty under the language of justice. He sins and then quotes scripture to excuse it. He keeps one face for the temple and another for the marketplace, one face for his friends and another for his rivals, and he tells himself he is wise to do so. But God is not deceived by two faces. God sees the heart beneath them both, and the heart of the two-faced man is divided, and a divided heart can never be at peace. Be single, my children, Asher pleaded. Be single toward the good. Let your inside and your outside be the same. Let the face you wear in the dark be the face you wear in the light. Do not mix a little poison into your good wine and call it cleverness. The whole cup is poisoned then. If you will serve God, serve him wholly. If you will love your brother, love him truly, not with the mouth only. Singleness of heart is the soul's only rest, for the single-hearted man has nothing to hide, nothing to remember, nothing to manage. He is the same everywhere, and so he is at home everywhere, and so he can sleep. Asher did not pretend that the single life was easy, or that the single-hearted always prospered in this world. Sometimes, he admitted, the two-faced seem to flourish, and the single-hearted seem to suffer. Do not let that deceive you. Look to the end. The two-faced man, however he prospers, is divided against himself all his days, and dies a stranger to his own soul. The single-hearted man, however he suffers, is whole, and dies in peace, and is received by the God whose single face of mercy he reflected. Look always to the end, my children, not to the comfort of the road, but to where the road comes out. And Asher warned with sorrow that his own descendants would in time become double, would mix the worship of God with the ways of the nations and so be scattered. But he promised, as all the brothers promised, that the Most High would visit the earth, coming himself, eating and drinking with men, breaking the head of the enemy, and saving Israel and all the nations by the single undivided mercy of his heart. So Asher blessed his children, and charged them once more to be single toward the good, and died, and was gathered to his people. And Asher gave his children a way to test their own hearts for the hidden doubleness. Watch the gap, he said, between the man you are in public and the man you are alone. The wider that gap, the more divided your soul. The single-hearted man is nearly the same in the dark as in the light, the same when no one watches as when all do, the same in his thoughts as in his words. The two-faced man is a stranger to himself, for he has worn his masks so long he has forgotten which face beneath them is real. Close the gap, my children. Let there be one of you, not two. It is exhausting to be two. It is restful to be one. And do not deceive yourself with the good you do, Asher warned, for this is the subtlest doubleness of all. A man may give generously to be admired, fast to be thought holy, forgive to be praised for mercy, and call himself good, when his goodness is only a costume worn over an old and hungry pride. Examine not only what you do, but why. The single heart does good for the sake of the good, and for the love of God, and would do it just the same if no eye on earth would ever see. Aim at that. It is the only goodness that will not turn to dust when the watching crowd goes home. Let his word make you simple now, in the good and restful way. Tonight you have no face to keep up, no part to play, no one to manage or impress. In the dark, with your eyes closed, you are exactly who you are, and that is enough, and that is allowed, and that is where rest begins. Set down the second face, be single, be whole, and sleep. Chapter 11. Joseph, the brother who endured all things. The 11th Testament belongs to Joseph, and if you have been listening to all the others, you will feel the difference the moment he begins to speak. For every brother before him confessed a sin: Reuben his lust, Simeon his envy, Judah his wine, Dan his anger, Gad his hatred. But Joseph, the brother they wronged, the one thrown in the pit, the one sold into slavery, Joseph has no such confession to make. His testament is not the confession of a man who fell, but the witness of a man who was given every reason to fall, and did not. And so his dying words are not a warning against a sin, but a song in praise of two quiet powers that had carried him through everything: patience and love. My children, Joseph began, In my life I have seen the worst that men can do, and I have seen the faithfulness of God outlast all of it. I was envied by my brothers and sold. I was a slave in a foreign land. I was lied about and imprisoned for a crime I did not commit. And in all of it, hear me, in all of it, the Lord did not abandon me. I was alone and He was with me. I was hungry and He fed my soul. I was cast down and He was secretly lifting me the whole time. Patience, my children. How great a power is patience, and what a beautiful thing the soul becomes that learns to wait for God. And before he told the long story of his trials, Joseph wanted his children to understand why he was telling it at all. I do not recount my sufferings to be pitied, he said, for I have no need of pity. God turned every sorrow to my good in the end. I tell you so that you will know what is possible. When the day comes that you are wronged and alone and far from everyone who loves you, and that day comes to every life, I want you to remember that one of your own fathers walked through exactly that and was not destroyed, but was kept and was lifted and died in peace, surrounded by the very ones who had wronged him, all forgiven. What God did for me, He can do for you. Do not despair in your pit. The pit is not the end of the story. It was for me only the strange beginning of the throne. And then Joseph told them the long, hard story he had never fully told. The story of the years in the Egyptian's house and the woman who would not leave him alone. For the old book tells us that the wife of his master desired Joseph and pursued him, not once, but over a long and wearing stretch of time, with every weapon a determined heart could find. She flattered me, Joseph remembered. She threatened me. She wept before me and said she would die without me. She offered me gifts and fine clothing and freedom and the rule of the whole house. When kindness failed, she turned to cruelty. When cruelty failed, she turned again to tears. She pretended to be sick so that I would be sent to her. She even pretended to want to learn about my God, hoping to draw me close under the cover of holy things. There was no trick she did not try, and no day she gave me rest. And how did I stand? Joseph asked, looking at his children. Not by my own strength, for I was young and far from home and alone, and the temptation was long. I stood by prayer and by fasting. When she pressed me hardest, I ate less and prayed more and humbled my body so that my soul could keep its feet. I kept the face of my Father before my eyes and the face of my God above me, and I remembered that no pleasure stolen in the dark is worth the loss of a clean heart. When I could not flee her, I endured her, and when at last I had to flee, I fled, and left even my garment in her hand, rather than my integrity in her bed. And for that integrity, the old book reminds us, Joseph was punished. The woman, scorned, turned her desire into a lie, and Joseph, innocent, was thrown into prison. And even then Joseph said, I did not curse her, I did not expose her to her husband, though a word from me might have freed me, because that word would have shamed her, and I would not buy my freedom with another's ruin. I held my peace. I went down into the prison in silence, and I waited. For I had learned that the God who sees in secret repays in the open, and that the patient man loses nothing in the end but his chains. Then Joseph turned to the second great power of his life, and here his old voice grew tender, for he spoke of his brothers, the very men who had sold him. When the merchants bought me, he said, and asked how I came to be a slave, I did not tell them the truth. I did not say my own brothers sold me. I said only I am a slave, and I covered their sin and bore the shame in their place to protect the honor of my father's house. And later, when God had lifted me up over all of Egypt, and my brothers stood before me not knowing my face, terrified in my power, I did not take revenge. How could I? I wept. I made myself known to them gently. I told them not to grieve, nor to be angry with themselves, for what they had meant for evil, God had woven into good to save many people alive. This is the love I want to leave you, Joseph said, a love that covers and does not expose, a love that waits and does not strike, a love that, when it has every right and every power to take revenge, chooses instead to forgive, because it has learned that mercy is stronger than revenge, and that the God who forgave us is honored most when we forgive each other. Love your brothers, my children. Bear with one another's faults, cover one another's shame. Do not repay evil with evil. For I tell you, out of all my sufferings, nothing ever made me as rich as the day I held the brothers who had sold me, and forgave them, and watched the fear melt from their faces. And the old book gives Joseph one final gift to pass on, the deep secret of his whole endurance. If you walk in self-control and in purity, with patience and with humility of heart, he told his children, the Lord will dwell among you, for he loves the humble and the patient. He resists the proud, but to the lowly he gives grace. I was the least esteemed of my brothers, and God made me the greatest. I was the most wronged, and God gave me the most to forgive, and so the most joy in forgiving. Be lowly, be patient, be pure, and leave the lifting up to God, for he lifts up the humble in the day he has chosen, and his timing, though it is slow, is never late. So Joseph, the brother who endured all things, blessed his children, and charged them to carry his bones up out of Egypt one day to the land of promise. And then he died, full of years and full of peace, and all Egypt mourned him, for even the strangers had seen in this one man what a human life looks like when it is governed not by sin but by patience and by love. And Joseph paused and told his children the thing he most wanted them to understand about all his suffering. The secret that had turned his prison into a place of peace. I did not understand while it was happening what God was doing, he admitted. When my brothers sold me, I did not see a plan, I saw only betrayal. When I was lied about and chained, I did not see a throne ahead, I saw only injustice. The meaning came later, looking back. And this is what I want you to carry. In the middle of your own dark years, you will not be able to see the meaning either. Do not demand to see it. Trust the one who is weaving it. The thread looks tangled and ugly from underneath, where we stand. Only from above can the pattern be seen. God was making something beautiful out of my worst days the whole time, and I could not feel his hands at the loom. He is making something of yours too. Wait for it. You will see it, if not in this life, then in the next. And do not measure God's love by your comfort. Joseph said, I was never more loved by God than in the pit and the prison, though I felt least loved there. His nearness is not always a feeling. Often it is a quiet faithfulness you only recognize afterward, when you look back and see that you were carried through a place you could never have crossed alone. And Joseph told his children one last thing about forgiveness, for he had thought more about it than any man alive. Forgiveness is not pretending the wrong did not happen, he said. My brothers truly wronged me, I never told myself otherwise. Forgiveness is choosing not to make them pay for it when you have the power to. It is releasing the debt, though the debt is real. When my brothers stood before me afraid, I held their whole lives in my hand. I could have repaid every year of my suffering in a single hour, and I chose not to. Not because they deserved mercy, but because I had been shown mercy, and I would rather be like the God who forgave me than like the brothers who sold me. And here is the freedom in it, Joseph said, his voice soft with the wonder of it still. The day I forgave them was the day I was finally free. As long as I held their debt, they held a piece of me. My peace depended on their punishment, and so I was still their prisoner, even on my throne. But when I let the debt go, I got myself back. Forgiveness, my children, is not mainly a gift to the one forgiven. It is the only way the one who was wronged can ever be truly free. Do not carry your wounds to your grave. Lay them down, forgive, and be free, as I was free. Let Joseph's two quiet powers carry you down into sleep now. Patience, the long, trusting waiting for a God who is working in the dark, lifting you while you cannot feel it. And love, the covering, forgiving, revenge-refusing love that made the most wronged man the most peaceful. Whatever you are still waiting for tonight, wait for it the way Joseph waited. Whatever you are still struggling to forgive, lay it down the way Joseph laid it down. And rest, knowing that the God who was with Joseph in the pit and the prison and the palace is with you, here in the quiet, now. Chapter 12. Benjamin, the pure mind and the last word. The 12th and last testament belongs to Benjamin, the youngest of the 12, the little brother born last and loved long, and it is fitting that the gentlest of them should speak the closing word. For Benjamin's testament is about the good man, what he is, how he sees, and why nothing in the world can finally darken him. My children, Benjamin said as his long life closed, let me tell you about the good man, the man with the pure mind, for I have watched one all my life, and his name was Joseph. And Benjamin, who had loved Joseph above all his brothers, held him up one last time as the picture of everything he wanted his children to become. The good man, he said, does not have a dark eye, for he shows mercy to all, even to sinners, even to those who plot against him. The good man cannot be ruled by the spirits of deceit, because the angel of peace guides his soul, And a soul guided by peace is not at the mercy of every passing temptation. Where the evil man sees an enemy to be destroyed, the good man sees a brother to be pitied. Where the evil man hoards, the good man gives. Where the evil man suspects, the good man hopes. He looks at all things with a single clean eye, and because his eye is clean, the whole world looks different to him than it does to the bitter and the grasping. Be that man, Benjamin urged. Keep your mind pure, and your eye single, and your heart kind, and you will pass through this dark world like a lamp that the darkness cannot put out. Men will wrong you, love them anyway. Men will deceive you, deal honestly anyway. The good you do may be forgotten. Do it anyway, for God forgets nothing, and the reward of the good man is not in this life only. And Benjamin spoke to his children of how a good man treats the evil he meets in others. The good man, he said, does not stare at the darkness in another and grow dark himself. He is like the sun, which shines on the dunghill and the palace alike, and is defiled by neither. He meets a liar and remains truthful. He meets a cruel man and remains kind. He meets one who hates him and answers with pity, for he understands that the one who hates is the one truly suffering. The evil man is troubled even at good fortune, for his heart has no rest. But the good man is at peace even in misfortune, for the angel of peace dwells within him, and the love of God surrounds him. Be the sun, my children, not the mirror. Do not merely reflect back the darkness that is shown to you. Shine through it, and honor the memory of the good, Benjamin urged. Speak of Joseph to your children, and to their children after them. Let the good man be remembered, so that those who never met him may still learn to walk as he walked. For a good life once lived is a lamp that may be lit again and again in other hearts, long after the one who first carried it has gone to his rest. This is how goodness outlives death. It is passed, like fire, from soul to soul, down all the generations, and it never goes out, and there is a reason the old book hints that the gentlest brother was given the last word, for Benjamin had not been there on the day Joseph was sold. He was the youngest, kept home, too small to share in the great wrong. And so of all the 12, he alone carried no guilt toward his brother, only love. He is the picture of the soul that has been kept, by grace, from the worst it might have done. The soul whose hands are clean, not because it is better than the others, but because it was spared and protected and loved. And such a soul, the old book teaches, owes the deepest gratitude and the gentlest heart of all. For it knows that it was mercy, not merit, that kept it. Be thankful, my children, Benjamin said. If the Lord has guarded you from great sin, do not grow proud over those who fell. Whisper instead, there but for the mercy of God would I have gone. The kept soul and the forgiven soul stand side by side in the end, and both are there by mercy, and neither has any room to boast. And then Benjamin, the last of the 12, lifted his children's eyes one final time to the hope that every brother before him had named, the hope that bound all 12 testaments into a single shining thread. He told them that from Levi and from Judah the Lord would raise up salvation, that the Most High would send his own mercy to the earth, dwelling among men in humility, that the temple of God would be filled with glory, and then for the sins of the people be left desolate, that the people would be scattered among the nations, but that in the end the Lord would gather them all, and the dead would rise. And then, Benjamin said, his old eyes bright with a thing he could see but would not live to touch, you shall see Enoch and Noah and Shem and Abraham and Isaac and Jacob rising up on the right hand in gladness. Then shall we also rise, each over our tribe, worshipping the King of heaven. Then the righteous shall rejoice, and the humble shall be lifted up, and there shall be no more sorrow, for the Lord shall be in the midst of his people forever. And with that hope in his mouth, Benjamin, the youngest son of Jacob, blessed his children, and died, and was gathered to his fathers, the last of the 12 to lay down his life, and the last to lay down his testament. The 12 voices, speaking as one. And now they have all spoken, 12 dying men, 12 gathered families, 12 old voices, across many years, each telling his children the truth he had paid for with his life. And if you listened, you will have heard that beneath their 12 different stories ran a single, steady current, one wisdom, spoken 12 times, in 12 ways. Reuben said, guard your eyes, for desire undoes the strong. Simeon said, do not envy, for envy eats the one who holds it. Levi said, keep your heart pure, for the true robe is a clean soul. Judah said, fear not your weakness but your pride. Flee wine and the love of money. Issachar said, walk in singleness of heart, and want little, and you will sleep in peace. Zebulun said, have mercy on every man, for the merciful find mercy. Dan said, do not be ruled by anger, cling to the truth. Naphtali said, live in good order, each thing in its season. Gad said, do not hate, for you hold the key to your own prison. Asher said, be single, not double, let your inside and outside be the same. Joseph said, be patient and be pure, and forgive, and leave the lifting up to God. And Benjamin said, keep a pure mind, and you will pass through the dark like a lamp it cannot put out. Guard the heart, flee the secret sins. Be single, be patient, be merciful, be kind. Love your brother, forgive the one who wronged you. And look, all 12 of them said it. Look for the one who is to come, the star from Judah, the priest from Levi, the mercy of God walking among men, who would open the gate that Adam lost and gather every scattered child of Israel home. 12 dying fathers, pointing with their last breath toward the same far light. And we, who live on the other side of their hope, know the name of the light they were pointing to, and we know that he came. And do you see what these 12 dying men have given us? Not a list of rules carved in cold stone, but a map of the human heart, drawn by those who had crossed every part of it. They had been proud and envious and angry and lustful and hateful and double-hearted, and they had each found the one narrow road out of their own particular darkness, and they turned with their last strength to point their children to it. This is the gift of the dying to the living. They no longer have anything to gain by lying, and so they tell the truth. Every one of them could have hidden his sin and died admired. Instead, each chose to be remembered honestly, so that those who came after might be spared. That honesty is their love, and it reaches across thousands of years to us tonight. Let us receive it. Let us be the children at the bedside. Let us take the wisdom they paid for so dearly and carry it a little further down the road, and one day pass it, in our turn, to those who will sit at our own. A prayer before sleep. So let us pray gently as we let this long day go. Lord God of Jacob, God of the 12, God of Reuben and Simeon and Levi and Judah, of Issachar and Zebulun, of Dan and Naphtali, of Gad and Asher, of Joseph and Benjamin, we thank you for these old and honest voices, and for every faithful hand that carried their words down to us across the long centuries. We thank you that you did not hide from us how the fathers fell, nor how you lifted them, that you let us hear their confessions and their hope, so that we might be warned and comforted and drawn nearer to you. We carry our own secret sins tonight, Lord, our own lust and envy and anger, our own grudges and greed and double hearts. We lay them down before you now, in the dark, where you see them all and love us still. Make us single of heart, make us patient, make us merciful and kind. Teach us to forgive as Joseph forgave, to wait as Joseph waited, to cover one another's faults with love, and quiet us now. Loosen the grip of every worry, still the racing of the mind. Let your peace come down over our hearts and our bodies like a warm and gentle weight. Send your angel of peace to guide our souls through the night, as you sent him to guide the good man's soul. Watch over us as we sleep. Guard us from fear, from despair, from every spirit of deceit, and let us wake with a clean and single heart, ready to walk one more day in your light, looking, as the fathers looked, for the one who is our salvation and our home. We pray it all in the name of the star they longed for, the mercy of God made near, who came from Judah and Levi as they foretold, and who lives and reigns forever. Amen. Sleep peacefully now, dear friend. The fathers have spoken, and you do not need to hold a single word of it. Let it all go, gently, the way they laid down their lives at the end. One quiet breath at a time. The angel of peace keeps watch tonight. The star they promised has long since risen, and the God of the 12, the God of Jacob, the God who walked with the fathers through every fall and every mercy, is walking beside you now in the quiet of this room. Close your eyes, rest your heart. You are held, you are forgiven, you are loved beyond measure. Good night, and may the peace of God be upon you now and always.